That's probably the one sound effect that describes the New York Football Giants' current situation. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you once again for listening to my show. This is episode number 5, and we are going to dip right into my predictions for the NFC division winners. But first, we have to talk about these New York Giants. 10 years ago, they were an elite team. They were the talk of the league. They came off of the first Super Bowl win of the Eli Manning era. And 8 years ago, they won the second Super Bowl of the Manning era. And since then, this team has undergone one of the most embarrassing, humiliating periods in franchise history. This team has not won a playoff game since winning Super Bowl 46 against the Patriots 21-17. And they've only been to the playoffs once since that time as well. And between 2012 and last year, the Giants have posted an overall record of 42-54, and that includes 4 double-digit loss seasons. And to add further insult to injury, earlier today it has been reported that receiver Golden Tate will face a looming 4-game suspension for substance abuse for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. Although he believes he does have a legitimate case in order to overturn or appeal the suspension. In addition to the ongoing feud that Odell Beckham and the Giants still have, despite the fact that he was traded months ago now, and the embarrassment of Dave Gettleman and all of his semantics, and the Giants' disaster of a season last year. Perhaps there has not been a darker period for this franchise, at least over the course of 6-7 years. And you have Eli Manning, who's entering the last year of his deal, and then you have Daniel Jones, who pretty much no one was talking about as a prospect. And who knows if Eli Manning will be able to at least stay healthy this year. So you have Golden Tate's looming suspension now. Sterling Shepard hurt his thumb. It's a joke. And you have Evan Ingram, who has been highly touted as an emerging elite tight end. I've seen the guy do nothing but drop a bunch of passes. So all they have left is Saquon Barkley. And there are still a lot of disgruntled Giants fans who still dispute the team's decision to have drafted Barkley last year. And look, my opinion is simple. I think regardless of your team's situation, I don't think you can pass on a talent like Saquon Barkley. Just my opinion. I get it. No other player in sports can make the kind of difference that a franchise quarterback can make. I get that. But Saquon Barkley was the most highly touted running back prospect, really, since Adrian Peterson, is what the general consensus among draft pundits and fans would probably be. And if this living nightmare of 2019 for the Giants continues, we already knew that they weren't going to win the division, obviously. You're talking about a team that could simply just be competing with the Redskins as a cellar dweller, which is what's going to happen. But we know one thing is for certain. These Giants won't be going anywhere anytime soon. And that brings us right into the NFC East. Which, of course, I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles here. Yeah, well, the Cowboys won the division last year, Tim. Why aren't you picking them? I can give you plenty of reasons. And the biggest reason is number 1. The Eagles have a better quarterback. It's that simple. One healthy, of course. And yes, that's also the number 1 question for the Eagles, is if Carson Wentz can stay healthy. And, mind you, they just gave Carson Wentz a 4-year, $128 million extension back early last month. And this is for a quarterback who has yet to start in a playoff game. And I'm not knocking Carson Wentz at all. If he had not gotten hurt 2 years ago, he would have been MVP. No doubt about it. Now, could he have taken the Eagles on that magical run that Nick Foles took them on? It's likely. But we'll never know. At least based on that year. And there's only one way to find out if it can be repeated. And here's another reason why the Eagles should win this division. Number 2 is, ultimately, offensively, the Eagles have one of the best overall units in terms of talent and merit offensively. I think they might have the best offensive line in all of football. They have 2 All-Pros on the offensive line, and they have the best center in football in Jason Kelce. The Cowboys' offensive line has been highly regarded in recent years, not so much the past 2 years, though. So that's number 2. And number 3, let's compare skill position players. Now, Ezekiel Elliott, who is still currently holding out over a contract dispute, and as a matter of fact, is looking for a record deal. But he's definitely better than even the combination of Eagles running backs of Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood. You would take him over probably any running back in football right now. Or almost any running back. And then on the Cowboys, you have Jason Witten did come back after a 1-year hiatus. But there's him, there's Amari Cooper, there's Randall Cobb, and there's Michael Gallup. You cannot possibly tell me that you would take them over Nelson Aguilar, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, and All-Pro tight end Zach Ertz. That would be asinine. And the Eagles have the best defensive line in football, too. At least on the interior. And they have a better secondary than the Cowboys, too. So that's why the Eagles are my pick to win the NFC East. And now, this is not even aimed at knocking the Cowboys. The Cowboys will be a playoff team, too. They still have a venerable offensive unit. They still have one of the best defenses in football. And because the Cowboys and the Eagles benefit from a division where the brass of the Giants and Redskins remains among the most incompetent in the league, of course they'll both benefit from that too. And don't forget, the Eagles have one of the best coaches in football too in Doug Peterson, who, oh by the way, it only took him 2 years to win a Super Bowl with this team. And the Eagles were decimated by injuries last year. And they still won that crazy wildcard game over the Bears and barely lost to the Saints. If not for the Alshon Jeffrey drop, which resulted in an interception, then the Eagles win that game. And would have gone to the NFC Championship game with a depleted roster. And now, moving into the NFC North, it's simple. With the exception of their kicking problem, I think the Bears repeat as division champions for the first time since 2005 through 2006. You have to like Mitch Trubisky's development last year. And he has a pretty solid supporting cast. Trey Burton is an okay tight end, but you have to love the speed of Taylor Gabriel. We all know how great Tariq Cohen is. And he's on his way to becoming the next great running back in football. There's Allen Robinson, and there's Anthony Miller. But obviously, and as has been the case throughout most of the history of the franchise, it's all about this Bears defense. With Eddie Jackson, former Packer HaHa Clinton-Dix, Kyle Fuller, Danny Trevathan, Hakeem Hicks, and of course, Khalil Mack. And I think this is the deepest defense in football. I think it's the most talented defense in football. And I think it's the most intelligent defense in football. And that's what's going to win the Bears this division. But the Bears have to get their special teams figured out. And every team in the NFC North has its own special teams problems. But for the Bears, it's all about the development of Trubisky. That's what it's all about. And he got off to a great start last year and struggled down the stretch, particularly in the wild card game. But he should make leaps and bounds this year. The Bears have the defense. They have a good enough supporting cast for their quarterback. So now it's up to him. And it's time to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. And moving on into the West, we all saw what the Seahawks were able to do last year. Many people, myself included, picked against them, and they surprised all of us. Disappointed against the Cowboys in the wildcard game, but nonetheless, the Seahawks still have Russell Wilson, and they still have a Super Bowl winning head coach in Pete Carroll. And obviously, Russell Wilson doesn't have the supporting cast he once did. Of course, Doug Baldwin's gone. But you have to like the running back core. Chris Carson's there. I like CJ Prosise. People love J.D. McKissick. Tyler Lockett, moving out from the slot, could be a legitimate number 2 receiver. And he's always been a very dynamic, great return specialist. And of course, there's DK Metcalf. And so far, Russell Wilson loves the chemistry and the rapport that the two have formed together so far. And we will see how that correlates into the regular season. The 49ers, there's still too much turmoil within that locker room, I feel. We have to see if Jimmy Garoppolo will even be the same quarterback he was. And look, they brought in Dee Ford and Tevin Coleman. This team has improved, no doubt. And they gave Nick Bosa that 4-year, $33 million rookie deal. And now you have to hope he can stay healthy. But, and don't forget, up until Jimmy Garoppolo's injury last year, a lot of people picked the 49ers to be a dark horse playoff team. I was not one of them, and I'm still not. The bottom line is this. You have Jimmy Garoppolo, and then you have Kyler Murray going up against 2 Pro Bowl and perennial All-Pro candidates in Russell Wilson and Jared Goff. And make no mistake about it, the Rams are going to win this division. I get it. This offense does run through Todd Gurley. I get it. Obviously. Todd Gurley has almost 4,000 yards from scrimmage over the past 2 seasons. And he's averaged almost 5 yards per carry. So everything runs through him. But don't forget, the Rams still have a very venerable young mind in Sean McVay. They still have one of the league's best receiving cores in a returning Cooper Kupp. Of course, Brandon Cooks, the speedster and deep threat, and Robert Woods. And Tyler Higbee is, he's your average tight end. He's nothing special. And it's the same thing with Gerald Everett. But the one thing that has truly gotten the Rams over the edge, it hasn't been the offense, and it hasn't even been Aaron Donald. Not that I'm discounting what he's done for them, obviously. And obviously I'm not discounting what the Rams' offense has accomplished over the past 2 years either. But it doesn't get talked about enough. But the Rams have the best special teams units in the league too. And Greg Zuerlein, their kicker, and Johnny Hekker, their punter. And that's an advantage that the Rams have over every other team in football when they have the 2 best at their respective positions in kicking and punting. It's an unheralded advantage that simply doesn't get discussed enough. And that's something that people have not talked about a lot. Unfortunately. But despite all the problems that the Rams could have with Todd Gurley's health entering the season, that is an X factor that's going to put them over the edge, as it has the past several years.